Well, to speak about the ramifications of the so-called unique Cyprus model, we're now joined live by RT's contributor Afshin Rattansi from London. Afshin, up until now, of course, bank deposits in any bank would be viewed as sacrosanct, but is this not a necessary sacrifice for depositors to save their money in the long term?
Well, already analysts now are saying that the latest provision to destroy Cyprus's second largest bank to keep the first one going isn't going to do anything but postpone the Eurozone melt. It's going to postpone things, but it's going to necessitate it, as it were. The argument that you're making, well, presumably Christine Lagarde of the IMF was making it as her flat was being raided. More than 10% of her flat presumably was studied in her own corruption investigations, which she does deny. But the main thing about Cyprus is this is a clear example of the Eurozone elite. And let's face it, right from the start, the Eurozone project was an elite system at the expense of the poor. And the poor are out there demonstrating in Nicosia right now in Cyprus, because they see that the confidence in the banking system, and it is about confidence, the initial panacea that they had to hurt the poorest people in Cyprus, as it were, has already created panic. And, well, it's the name of the bank governor there, isn't it?
Obviously not good news for Cypriots, but there are some people who are saying this could have a knock-on effect. This means that people's money is not going to be safe anywhere throughout the Eurozone. But the officials are saying this is a unique one-off measure. Do you believe that?
The banking system of the Eurozone presumably is interconnected. That's how they were able to find and create the Euro system. So, of course, there are deep interconnections between all these different banks and all these institutions. So this, if anything, will create more jitters, and people will be watching to Portugal. People already are, let alone Greece, because the only perhaps good thing to come out of it is that the IMF and ECB won't make the idiotic move of immediately causing massive queues outside banks. But in effect, the fiscal demands that are made by Brussels and Berlin are such that they are going to do that anyway. So, of course, this is going to stretch further and further.
Yeah, and the French finance minister said it was the Cypriot offshore business model that actually brought the country to its current state. I'm reading a quote from him. But there are similar economies like Cyprus elsewhere, aren't there, of course?
Of course, there's Malta and there's Luxembourg. In fact, the Maltese leader has already published one article saying, well, what would happen if it happened in Malta? It's very interesting. This is all coinciding with the BRICS summit in South Africa, because it was the BRICS countries that reacted best to the 2008 crisis. Why? Because they had much more state involvement in the banking system. Whereas in the Euro countries that we're looking at right now, and of course in the United States, the government acts as a quasi-private entity in itself. And along with that kind of private for-profit idea within the banking system, therein lie the bubbles that will ultimately, according to some analysts, destroy, the Chinese call it, Western capitalism.
And just briefly, Afshin, many are saying that if Cyprus went bankrupt, then it would be its exit from the Eurozone and indeed from the EU. Would that not be the answer then, as along with Greece? Many have said that that could be the answer. Could that be the panacea?
I think the great surprise to many of the non-elites, the 99% of Europe, is that Cypriots are not out there on the streets demonstrating much more than they have been doing in the past few hours. They should be occupying the banks. They should be in there demanding that Cyprus leaves the euro forthwith. The euro has been a disaster for the poor of Cyprus. It has been the elites, and of course there has been some trickle down. But this business model of having the lowest corporation taxes in the Eurozone to attract funding and attracting money, I shouldn't say it's all about laundering money, because the mainstream media love to say, oh, they're just laundering money, therefore they should take the punishment. I'm sure there's more laundered money in Germany or in Berlin or let alone London, where I'm speaking from. But no, that business model has been shown to be short-term gain for for, alas, long-term pain. And we must remember it's a militarized society. Let's hope elements like the Golden Dawn, the fascist party that's emerging in Greece, that kind of fascism doesn't again rear its ugly head in Cyprus after the current troubles.
But look, this is a small economy. Would it really matter if Cyprus did leave the Eurozone, or would this have a huge impact on the confidence of the Eurozone and of the whole initiative?
It would matter for Cyprus if it left the Eurozone, because this is the way out for Cyprus. Whether it would matter for the ECB, for the institutions in Strasbourg and Brussels, I'm sure the mainstream media will be able to swing their publics round to thinking all is all right, these are just oddities and anomalies, and things will go on. But of course, as other countries then leave the euro, then we will finally see its collapse and presumably some new way of organizing these economies in Europe. The Eurozone has been an unmitigated disaster in reaction to what happened to Lehman Brothers and so on back in 2008.
Afshin Rattansi, live in London. Thanks very much for your thoughts. Always good to hear from you. Thank you.